Flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll begin the meeting with the open forum. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and address the board at this time? Okay, next we'll do celebrating our successes, and Aaron Ferris is with us and is going to be our student board member, and so have you come forward and get you sworn in here officially. Raise your right hand. I, Aaron Ferris, affirm I will support the Constitution of the United States
Affirm I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office
of student school board member
as student school board member
of Independent School District 241
of Independent School District 241
to the best of my judgment and ability.
to the best of my judgment and ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next we have the best community for music education.
Hi, my name is Doug Schmidt, and I'm from Schmidt Music in Minneapolis, where I bring you warm greetings from all your friends at Schmidt Music, including my brother Tom and I, who are the fourth generation owners of our company. And we have two of our sons involved in the business, so now we're in our fifth generation and 123rd year of business, so we're really proud of that. But today, my great big head gets to wear two hats. So I represent Schmidt Music, but I also represent NAM, which is an acronym that stands for National Association of Music Merchants, which is incorrectly named. It should be called WHAM, because it's really the Worldwide Association of Music Merchants, and it comprises the $17 billion music products industry. So it's all of the instrument makers and music publishers, and right up the road here, Wanger Corporation, they're part of it, and all of us who are involved. And 20 years ago, they came up with a program called the Best Communities for Music Education, and it requires somebody just like Diane Haney. And Diane Haney, you're my hero. So Diane got one of their marketing emails and thought, you know, we should go after that. But it requires somebody like her to take that initiative, and that initiative means that she fills out a 53-page survey, which is all the statistics you could ever think of that has to do with your music department. So it's a pretty thorough piece. And then they submit that to the University of Kansas. They've got a music research institute there, and they go through and determine who are the winners. And this year there were a little over 600 winners in the nation, but there are over 14,000 school districts in the nation. So that puts Albert Lea in the top 4%. One person I neglected to introduce is Russ Rathlisberger. He's right behind me. Wave your hand. And Russ comes out here to Albert Lea every Tuesday, and he services all of your music teachers, bringing repairs or music or anything they might need. So you might see him around the school. You might just say, "Hi, Russ, how are you?" He's a really nice guy. He comes out of our Rochester store. Let's see, what else am I thinking of? Basically, that's about it. So we have awards for everybody. Diane, you want to say a word?
I just want to say that this is not just a school district award, this is a community award. So we included people in our community that give private lessons, that have instrumental vocal lessons, string lessons, our Albert Lea Music Association who supports music, our Marion Ross Theater who brings in music groups. I mean, it's a big community. You know, it takes a village to raise a child, right? And we have a lot of things in Albert Lea that not many communities have as far as music education and support of music. There's music in our churches. There's music all over the place in our community. So on our Music Superstars list, we included lots of you, and we thank you for supporting what we do in the schools, because without you, it wouldn't be there as well.
Yes. Yes, it really does take a village. So before I go, I would love to get a picture because the people at NAM love to see that. So if we could get our music superstars to quick run around all of you, I'll get a quick shot and then we're out of here. Does that work?
You have a little flag, come on over.
So Diane did a nice job recruiting all these people to join us today.
Look at this crowd.
Woo-hoo. In the meantime, does anybody have any questions? I'm glad to answer. Otherwise, you can reach out to Diane if you want to send me an email or something. I'm happy to respond that way, too. So get more down in this side of the room if you can. Go down there. Okay. Oh, don't be bashful now. You're an important part of it. Okay, let's do one formal one where you're standing all nice and tight like that. And now let's do a fun one. Hold them up over your heads like, woohoo, we win. Yay. That's all I need. You guys need more? Got one more? Oh, yeah, come on in. We got one more. That was just a test shot. Okay. All right, be sure to smile. We'll do the formal one first. All right, now the informal, you hold it up over your head and wee, we win. All right, go Albert Lee. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for helping in our music program, and congratulations. Barbie? Okay. Thanks, Diane. Congratulations again. Okay, next we have celebrating our successes, and Peggy Bennett. I received a letter. Please come forward, Peggy. I received a letter from the Minnesota School Boards Association, and it says, each year Minnesota School Boards Association recognizes legislators who work with our government relations team on legislation affecting school boards. And this is one of your legislature, Peggy, is a recipient of the 2019 MSBA Legislature of Distinction Award. So.
Any words of wisdom for us, Peggy?
Well, I just want to say thank you all for your work, because this is where it really happens, in the classroom. So it's an honor to represent you all and be an advocate for our students and our teachers and our schools. Thank you.
Great working with you.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to reports. Dr. Funk? Oh,
I think, yeah, consent.
excuse me. Back up, consent items. I'd entertain a motion for that. Second? Okay. Motion and second, and all those in favor of approving the consent items signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to reports.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ashley, the next slide. So part of my report on a monthly basis at the regular meeting, I think just to keep everybody fresh on what our goals are for the upcoming school year, I'll present these. And again, just these are for the board and the community's acknowledgement that these are what we're trying to do as a school district this year. So my next couple slides will kind of relate back to a few of these. All right, so community outreach. Interestingly enough, we've done some pretty significant community outreach as an administration with different groups within our community within the past month. Yesterday, we had a number of administrators in the district attend a community meeting with Sudanese families, and we heard about some of the needs that they saw as a district and where they could use some help from us as a school district. And I was really appreciative of their comments at the meeting, and they were very forthright about what their needs were. So we met, and I said, I'd like to meet again in about 6 months to see where we're at with things, and so that was a real positive. For the second or third year in a row, we had administrators from the district meet in August this year with a community meeting with our Karen families. And that meeting focused on back to school and any questions some of our new families may have regarding some of the practices we conduct at various schools in our district. And then relating to one of the goals on the previous slide for the board goals, we are going to begin scheduling meetings between board members and local parent-teacher organizations as part of our board outreach. So what Ashley will be doing is she'll be working with the principals to find out what some opportune times are to come and meet with the PTOs. Ashley will then send opportunities to come to the meetings out to the board, and then hopefully we can have 2 or 3 board members at these meetings, later this school year. So that's some of the stuff we're doing for community outreach. Couple of times this year already, we've met between the high school administration and the district staff to examine our pathways opportunities for students. But what I mean there is we've got AP, we've got kind of our traditional courses, and then we have a lot of school-to-work youth apprenticeship things. So we're examining the courses we're offering, we're looking at course loads, and we are continuing to meet with people, particularly Jean Eaton within the community, to examine pathways options for our students who aren't maybe going to go to a traditional 4-year college, and they're going to go a different route. So you're going to be seeing some information later this fall, early winter, about coursework. How many kids are actually taking, say, A classes at Oberlin High School, or business classes, things like that. So the community will start to get a better feel for what our students are doing at the high school. And what we're really trying to do is educate folks on the different opportunities we have for their students at the high school. And then we can also highlight youth apprenticeship opportunities, teacher cadet opportunities, and then more traditional school-to-work opportunities. So through a communication strategy over the next few months, you're going to see a lot more information about the different things that are going on at our high school. Next slide. Just a construction update. Tanya, you moved into your office last week, I'm guessing, right?
Moved in on the week of the 16th, totally trickling in, yeah.
So the front doors are in, the windows are in, so that looks really good. I know that was there last week. They were just doing some internet wiring. Gym, we're looking at substantial completion sometime in November. The field house at Hammer, same thing, late fall, early winter. They've been focusing more on getting the stadium ready, so that took in the press box at the stadium, so that slowed down some of the work on the field house, but that's picking up again. The fields they're working on as much as they can this fall, and so they should be ready next summer. And the daycare facility, that's taken a bit longer than we thought. We were hoping at this point the built out can be complete. They're saying about another 4 weeks. So that's where we're at there, and then we're going to have to wait up to another 4 weeks for approval for the daycare, for permitting. So people are asking where we're at. Someone who works closely with me. So that is just a quick update on that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to board updates, and why don't we start with Dennis this time?
I think I talked last time about the Education Foundation banquet, huge success. Foundation, we will actually be meeting first Wednesday in October coming up. So we have that meeting coming up. We had a worksite wellness meeting last Friday. Just wanted kudos to Bree. She is doing a great job on the wellness piece here at the school. One of the things we talked about is, from a school standpoint, getting the recognition for the school for the work that they're doing with it. The chamber did not send out the letters to certify different businesses, but we know well and good that the school district would have been a top-performing work and wellness site. And I know from the email that we saw, she has a whole new committee this year, and I think one individual from every school. So that was really cool to see. We had the Business Education Foundation, or no, not education, the Business Education Committee, and I'm just looking back at the notes there because it was a couple weeks ago. One of our board members, Sue Callahan, retired, so they have a new person there. Talked quite a bit on the School to Work programming and the new flyers that are out with that John Double and also Gene Eaton and Community Foundation had approved. Calendar items, just looking ahead at some of the different programming, but things look like they're going along as planned and with the school district and work out in the community. So we're seeing some good things there. I don't want to steal all the thunder, so I'll save some for Neil and Kim.
I remembered this time, Jill. We just attended a policy committee with Dennis and Jill, and we went over 3 policies: student promotion, retention, and program design, protection and privacy of pupil records, and public data requests, and they will be presented for the first time in October. That's all I have.
Just attended the Finance Committee meeting previous to the meeting tonight, and enjoyed my opportunities the last couple soccer matches to be here at our new facility. What an awesome setup, and yes, the press box is getting better all the time. It's very good.
I've attended 3 events at Hammerfield, which it's amazing seeing the number of people that have come out. It's stands are full, and a lot of great comments, and our team almost won Friday night. So we also had a meeting with Mayo, the county, the city, and Riverland. Just got an update of what they're doing, and then I also attended the Education Foundation banquet. It was well done. Great job, Neil, and Dennis, and appreciate your efforts on that. It was probably the best banquet I've been to, and I've been to quite a few, so it was great.
I attended the policy committee meeting along with Dennis and Angie. Also, I've been receiving some input from the public, mostly about athletics, facilities, and staffing.
I love it when Dennis gives a report before me, because he does such a fine job. And we're on the foundation board together, and obviously I was at the banquet too, and it was an impressive banquet, I thought. And there are a lot of people that put a lot of time and work into doing that. And I won't forget somebody if I mention him, so I won't. I might add that Peg Bennett, who was honored with the music award thing, was also one of the honorees at the banquet. She was one of the distinguished educators, so that was interesting. And in the spirit of the appreciation for the music community, I will keep my report very short because I have to be out here by 6:30 to be in attendance at a rehearsal of the world-famous Carriers group conducted by Janae Clausen, who was up here.
I attended business ed. I was not able to attend the banquet for the Education Foundation. I was at a soccer game, which was really cool. Did want to say, though, I just got done with the finance meeting, so thank you, Jennifer, for keeping us up to speed on that. But tomorrow is a groundbreaking ceremony at Riverland, so that's kind of a huge thing for the community. $10.2 million will be invested in the community with a new trades and transportation center. And so for the region itself, it's going to be a huge, huge benefit, and that goes along with what Mike was saying about future careers. So.
Hey, give me a break. Just two things. I was able to be at the school conferences at the high school last Monday. It was just fun to see the turn. I was there with youth and government, but just to visit with the parents and the students, it seemed like it was a very, very efficient, well-run meeting. And then I had to put in one more plug for Peggy Bennett. I talked before, but it's nice to have her here to talk about it. The work that she does for students and youth in the community, the foster care bill that she got passed through unanimously, and using students from in the cities who actually got to get experience with talking to committees and to help impact that legislation is just what an effort. It was just great to see, so thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Aaron, do you want to give us a report? It's kind of putting you on the spot here for first meeting, but you want to give us a report?
Sure thing. So, I just want to express my appreciation and gratitude. My goal as a student school board member is to set an example for other students of what it means to have pride in your school district and to give the school board a detailed and first-hand account of what is happening in the high school when asked about what's working, what's not, and what can be done to improve the education of students, as well as relay that information back to the students in the district with an unbiased and thorough answer. But, so that's a little bit about me. Just at the high school, I guess, right now a lot of people are very enthusiastic about the new football field and are looking towards the completion of the other fields that are currently under construction.
Thank you. Teacher report, Laura.
Did I get it on? All right. My name is Laura Wangan. I am a 7th grade teacher here at Southwest. I'm also the ALEA secretary. Starting off with elementary schools, they have started doing their walkathons. Halverson had $11,300 raised on September 13th, was it? And then Sibley has a stroll for the goal instead of a walkathon. They have another little lingo they use. And they raised over $14,000 on September 20th. Lakeviews is going to happen this Friday, the 27th, and then Hawthorne is next Thursday, October 3rd. And even remembering my elementary days being a teacher there, it's a great day for everyone to come together as a common goal, and whether you raise $100 or 50 cents, it's contributing to everyone as a whole. So that was a fun day to remember. At Southwest, student council elections were recently held for 6th and 7th graders. And students did come up with some very clever slogans and put some signs out as they ran for student council. Student council recently announced some homecoming days next week that we're going to have, or dress-up days for homecoming, excuse me. Monday is dress to unimpress. That could be a very interesting day. Movie character day on Tuesday. Wednesday is workout Wednesday. I'm looking forward to that day. Teacher Thursday is when kids dress up as teachers, and it's very interesting how they see us sometimes. And then Friday is Spirit Day, so cherry and blue. Also on the Friday of homecoming, the 7th grade will be taking their field trip to the Rendezvous. I know that at Albert Lee area schools, teachers have been working on implementing the practices of another strategy of talk, read, talk, write. We had, was it Amy White? Amy Young, excuse me. Amy Young came down and presented to us and presented to all the elementary schools also. It's a great classroom process that gives students an alternate and compelling way to access content area information. In short, students read an academic text rather than sitting and listening to their teachers lecture the whole time. In reading so, they gain a deeper understanding of the content. And I'm finding that this is not necessarily a new thing that we're implementing, but it's just another tool that we can add to our toolbox for raising awareness. And then when students have regular opportunities to talk, read, and write about what they are learning, I feel like the quantity and quality of the learning itself increases. I also see, is it a way to involve all students in discussions instead of a traditional teacher calling on one student and then moving on. Also at Southwest, we are, each of the teachers and support teachers all have an advisory of about 14 to 16 students, and we meet on a daily basis for about 25 minutes. And on most Mondays or the start of each week, it could be a Tuesday, teachers have been implementing Tom Cody's top 20 concepts and practical tools for creating a safe culture in our learning, or in our schools, where children and adults together just enjoy communicating as a whole. I feel that the school has a common language now set and behaviors have really improved. And then also, high reliability schools or HRS surveys were taken by staff, students, and parents, and teachers as a whole are looking forward to discussing those results at our coming up district day on the 21st of October. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just add to my report that at the last school board meeting, the board went into closed session in regards to how to evaluate the superintendent and the timeline. So we'll move on to curriculum and instruction, Halverson Elementary update. Tanya.
As Tanya is coming up here, I want Julie, you want to stand up? So just you could just stand up and be acknowledged. Okay, Julie Celine is here. Remember when we had to do the phonics exercise a few months back? Okay, as a school board. All right, she's the one responsible for that. So.
All right, am I on? You must still be on, Laura. Good. All right. Good evening. I'm here tonight to present Halverson Elementary's data from the 2018-2019 school year. I'll go through my data slides for the year, looking at what does our K2 data look like, mostly based on our FAST data that we do in our classrooms. We benchmark that 3 times a year, but looking at our fall to spring. We'll look at our MCA data, as that we know that's what's reported with the state of Minnesota and our North Star reports. And then I'll wrap up at the end just talking about our action plan for the year and how we're actually responding to the data. It's one thing to look at it, but what are we going to do in response to it? So that's what we'll look through today. Pathways document, this is created by the school board, so you guys are familiar with this information. Our first slide is looking at Halverson's free and reduced meals student count percentages for the last 3 years and then projected to the year 2020. As you can see, Halverson in 2018 was at 72%, while the district total is at 51, 19, 74%, and 50. So, and that's not new information to you as a school board. It's not new information to our community. We know that's where we're sitting in terms of our free and reduced student count in our building. This is the reporting, is to identify our progress towards meeting the school board student proficiency and growth goals. So again, going back to the Pathways document at the beginning, how are we reporting proficiency and growth? Also looking at our North Star report, that's how we're scored, how schools are scored in districts in those 5 accountability measures. So we'll look at each of those pieces in the slides today. What does our attendance look like? Our achievement, our progress, and then proficiency in EL, and then if we were looking at high school data, obviously we'd be looking at our graduation rates as well. First group of content area that we're looking at this evening is our math academic achievement. This is the early math assessment. When you are looking at the colored percentiles over to the side, we are wanting to see an increase in the spring of students that are in the green and the blue. So looking at our kindergarten data from last year to, from the fall last year to the spring, we did increase the number of students that are in the green. First grade, again, looking at an increase, you can see in the fall, they came in pretty significantly below where they needed to in terms of percentile rank. But looking in the spring, we had an increase in that area. Second grade. And then we move into MCA data. So these slides are looking a little bit different. You're looking at 3 bar graphs that are stacking your data for 3 consecutive years, 2017, 18, and 19. If you look in the bottom left corner, that's where we're looking at Halverson's percent proficient. It felt like a mouthful, sorry. Percent proficient in the bottom left-hand corner. The top left-hand corner is as it's compared to the state. So in terms of overall proficiency in 3rd through 5th grade, we're looking at 46.5% proficient last school year. So it was an increase over what we saw in 2018 school year, a nice growth over 2018, and working our way back up to where they were in 2017. The state also looks at the percentage of students that are actually taking the test, and so overall in 3rd through 5th grade, we have 98% of our students taking the test at Halverson. Very few opt-outs at Halverson. Most of our opt-out students are looking at our level 3 special ed students that are in a self-contained special education setting for the majority of their day. That's often where we see opt-outs. This is looking again overall 3rd through 5th grade student growth. So the left-hand side is looking at the state. The right-hand side is looking at Halverson. We're wanting to see our students, we desire our students to be in the high growth for sure, but we also look at students that are making medium to high growth. So across the state, medium growth 44% with high at 24, 68%. When we add our two together, we're looking at 78%. So looking at the medium to high growth rates, that feels positive that we're above those state averages there. Now your following slides are looking at each of them by grade level. So again, you're looking in those same areas. In the bottom left is where at Halverson is at for 3rd grade, 40% proficiency for last year. 100% of the students took the test. It must be sticky, sorry. There it went. Nope, it didn't. Yes, it did. Got it. Grade 4, 56.5%. Thank you. It's not clicking. Okay. This one is looking at the growth. So you saw, we looked at the 3rd grade data and then it went straight to 4th grade. Obviously, we don't have growth data to look at for 3rd grade. But in 4th grade, we can look at our student growth on what it looked like in 3rd grade MCAs to 4th grade MCAs. So when we're looking at high growth in our 4th graders, 56% of our students met high growth targets. Go ahead, Ashley. Thank you. 5th grade math academic achievement. This one, I'm very pleased with looking at our results here. In 2018, 15% of our students were proficient. Last year, 44.8%. So very pleased with the work that our 5th grade team did last year in getting those students up to proficiency. And then again, growth on this one. That medium growth is a nice big chunk there. High growth too, though, looking at almost 22% of our students saw high growth. The following slides are looking at reading academic achievement, again looking at fall to spring. The first ones are kindergarten through 2nd grade in the early reading FAST assessment. Same percentile ranks in each one of those. 2. Go ahead. Now we're looking at the academic achievement for MCAs. This is looking at overall percent proficiency. And then this is overall student growth. So looking at the high growth there, that's a nice comparison to the state. And looking at high growth state level, almost 28%. We were looking at close to 39%. And now looking at the individual grade levels in that area. Go ahead, Ashley. Growth in 4th grade. 5th grade again, this one's a really nice jump from 39% to 69% last year. Very pleased with that as well. Really nice high growth in 5th grade.
It's almost 20 points above the state average.
Yeah, we're very pleased with that growth data. Okay. This one is science again. You can see just so excited from 2018, 18% to 2019, 60%. Again, above the statewide average of 54.9%.
If I'm not mistaken, Halverson has either the highest science scores in the district or they're tied with Lakeview.
This one's looking at English language progress toward target and meeting target. The one on the left is progress towards individual growth. And then the one on the right is the percent of our students that are meeting target. So progress towards individual growth on the left. The statewide average on that is 61%, while Halverson's at 68%. So above the state and district average there. And then our percent meeting target, again, above the state and district averages in the percent of EL students that are meeting language proficiency. Consistent attendance. I see Amy joined me tonight. Amy's one of our school social worker at Halverson, and she's a big part of our attendance team, along with her many other duties. But we worked really hard on being consistent with our attendance contracts and contacting families if we noticed that families were struggling with attendance. Both Amy and Chris Fry are great about helping families find resources if it's transportation issues. How do we work out busing and things like that? And also communicating, if need be, with the county because of compulsory attendance. So when we look at our consistent attendance counts, we're at 90%, again, above the state and school district averages. So we're very pleased with that. And we have a new tool this year called EdSpring, which is a data warehouse tool, and that has really helped us look at attendance patterns in a different way. So we're excited to launch that tool this year. Okay, now what, right? Lots of data, lots of numbers. What are we going to do about it? So when we talk data, we want to know every data. At every point, we're talking student by student, standard by standard. What are each of those targets that we're working through with our kids? So these are some of the things that we've talked about this year. Data-driven action plan in terms of math. Our collaborative teams, you have heard the information about the 4 critical questions in cycle work. We'll again be focusing on that work through our professional learning communities and answering those 4 critical questions, really focusing on knowing our standards, making sure that we have common formative assessments to assess our standards, but then now what? If students know it, how are we going to extend their learning? And if they haven't learned it, what are those systematic interventions that we're going to put in place? So the next few slides are looking at some of those tools that we've talked about putting into place for this coming year. Assessing and differentiating each and every target. We have We identify our priority standards and have I can statements within those priority standards. So making sure that we're providing differentiated instruction for each of those times. We're implementing win time every day. This year, we're able to use our intervention teachers for math intervention in kindergarten through 2nd grade. We did not have math intervention last year. We focused on reading. We're trying to kind of put a little bit of a balance in there. When we looked at our data previously, I want more. I want higher proficiency. And so we talk about what can we do to have more, and part of that is early intervention. And so we are building some early intervention into our K-2 classrooms. And then looking at our extended learning opportunities for students that have achieved mastery. We again have Gail Brownlow in each of our buildings this year that provides some of those extended learning opportunities for students every week. Okay. We've increased our non-negotiable number talks. We had a non-negotiable of at least 3 times a week last year. We're upping that to every single day. It's a non-negotiable in our classrooms that you are doing a number talk every single day. And Chris Quisley put together a great pacing guide for our teachers to use so that we're making sure that we are hitting each of those pieces. Math Navigator, looking at that a little bit more in depth in grades 2 through 5. Math Navigator is targeted intervention modules that really look at identifying those underlying misconceptions that might be hindering a child's progress. So looking at that a little bit more. Kathy Richardson is another resource that we use. Again, this one really looks at pinpointing what our students need to know and helping teachers deepen their understanding of the concepts that they're teaching. We need to know what we're teaching if we expect our students to learn it. So those Kathy Richardson math resources help deepen the teacher's understanding of the concepts. And then reading. Dr. Funk has already introduced Julie Celine. She is a really great reading phonics consultant. She was with us a number of times last year and is continuing with us this year as well. She actually spent the morning with us at Halverson and was at Lakeview this afternoon. But one of the main things we talked about today is we got really great foundations last year in solid phonics instruction. Now, what does that transfer of skills with skills practice look like? And we talked a lot about how are we going to get kids now to lift the words off their page. We're doing well with the oral practice. Now, what are we going to do when we get them into books and get them into oral read and fluency? So we're excited to move forward with some of the things that she's working with us. 2nd grade has a unique data point for this fall in terms of their phonics. We're going to do a whole class intervention that is going to focus on what I just talked about, is that transfer of skills practice with them. Continuing to provide intervention support with our intervention teachers, looking at phonics and reading this year. It was solely reading last year, but again, going back to what I said before, we're looking at that transfer of skills. So we need to be doing more than that phonics piece in isolation, but building it into their daily reading. And guided reading continues. That's not new information either. Embedding our science and social studies standards in our literacy instruction. We're doing that during our whole group literacy instruction. Laura already helped me with Talk, Read, Talk, Write. I don't have to talk about that one now. In addition to Julie consulting with us on phonics, Amy Young consulting with us on EL, Halverson also falling under the targeted support area with the North Star reporting system. We'll be working with the regional centers of excellence this year. I've met with the literacy coach once already, and we will be meeting again on October 10th. We will be starting literacy learning walks and fidelity checks. As part of that, our leadership team, along with my instructional coach and I, will be working on developing practice profiles for both our intermediate classrooms and our primary classrooms to further determine what are those non-negotiable pieces in literacy instruction in our classrooms. And I think that's my last one, right? Okay, questions for me?
Well, first of all, I just want to make a comment. You and your staff have done a fantastic job. That was a great improvement, so thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank
Good to
you.
see.
We're excited about the progress. Every little bit helps, so we're pleased with the steps we're making, and I'm very proud of the staff for digging in and working on the right work. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sibley. Diane.
All right. Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to thank Tanya. I know she thanked you, but I'll be able to pick up the pace a little bit because she explained a lot of this as we went through, so I won't have to explain like she did. So, of course, I love you, Tanya. All right, just like Tanya had said, this is our free and reduced lunch count at Sibley, so you can see moving and increasing a little bit each year. You saw that. So kindergarten, again, just like Tanya said, we're starting with our math data. In kindergarten, we saw great gains in kindergarten. My kindergarten teachers came to me in the fall and said, you know, it says we're supposed to keep moving here, but our kids are really missing some strong foundational skills. And so they stopped and backed up and gave them some strong foundation, and we saw that in our data. So that was fun to see. First grade as well, saw some great growth from fall to spring. Second grade, we saw some, not quite where we want to be, so we want to dig into that. I'll talk about that at the end here. This then gets into our third through fifth grade MCA scores. So again, like Tanya said, we have the statewide data in the upper left-hand corner. We have Sibley's in the bottom left-hand corner, and we'll talk through, this is all grades, and we'll talk through individual grades in our next slides. Before that is our growth. Our third grade in math, you can see they increased a bit. Still have some work to do. They're in the 70%. We still have some room to grow, but 100% of our kids tested, so we didn't have kids opt out, which was good. So we're getting a true picture of our kids. Fourth grade, we saw an increase in our math, moving back up. At about 97% of our kids, 98% take the test. And then like Tanya said too, we don't have growth for third grade because it's their first year that they take that. So fourth grade math growth, we had, if you look here, about 55% growth there. Not quite where we need it to be. We saw some growth, but we still have some growth to go. Their proficiency made some great gains, but now we need to work on that growth piece. Fifth grade is where we saw some things turn. They had made some great gains in the year before, and this year we had some struggles, which we've pinpointed some of them, but we saw a dip in our fifth grade. Overall, proficient and growth. Then we move to reading, our kindergarten reading fast scores from fall to spring. Again, we saw some great growth, but still have a ways to go. We have too many kids in that yellow range yet, and still a little bit high in that red. First grade made some growth, but again, not where we need to be. Moved some of our green into that blue, which is good. Moved some of that red out of the red into the yellow. But second grade. Then moving into third grade, overall reading academic. You can see the bottom percentage there. Our fourth grade, the growth rate first. So overall, we saw about 60% growth in reading, at medium and high growth. Our third grade, we saw a decline in proficiency.
So on the chart,
Yep.
So the fourth grade or third grade, is it last year's second graders or they're in?
These kids were in third grade last year.
Last year, so now
Yep.
they're fourth.
They're in fourth this year, yes, good question. Yes, so this is last year's data. Then fourth grade, because of course we don't have growth rates for third grade. Fourth grade made an increase. So I moved some of those kids into that green, up into that blue level. And about 70%, a little over 70% growth in medium and high, so that was good. Fourth grade made some great gains in reading. But then again, our fifth grade took a hit. So we have some room to grow in fifth grade, which we've started working on. I'll talk about that in a minute here. Our growth was about 59% only in fifth grade. Our science for fifth grade, you can see across the board, reading, math, and science across the board, fifth grade struggled. Then our English language progress towards target, a meeting target, you can see on the left, our individual growth was about 80%, nice growth there. And then our percent meeting target was made some nice gains there too at 58%, about 59%. So again, I know Laura talked about the Talk, Read, Talk, Write. We've had Amy Young in our district and working with our EL teachers, our multilingual learners, and some of those practices, we can see that they're working. So emulating some of those pieces within our classroom is some of the goals that I'll talk about here. And attendance has been fairly good here at Sibley. Like Tanya talked about, the EdSpring, saving us a lot of time. We meet weekly with our counselors and our social workers to go through that attendance. That tool that we've added this year has saved us a lot of time, so we can really dig into some other needs of students that we're looking at, so not just looking at those attendance and attendance contracts, but we've had good attendance. So what are we doing to make improvements? Of course, we're dissatisfied with our results. We are, however, pleased with the work that we did start last year and the changes that we've added so far. So what we did to start with is we planned summer dates for our staff to come and look at our scheduling and say, what do we need to pinpoint? Where do we prioritize our resources? And let's do it as a group. And we had 12 staff members that came in during the summer in July. We had classroom teachers, special education teachers, and specialists all come in to help put our heads together to say, what are we going to do to help make improvement? So we knew, okay, we've got some changes. We have the needs of our students at Sibley have changed. So we said we cannot continue with some of the practices that we've been doing. We have to make a difference. So we have to change some of those things. It's not the kids that we can't use that as an excuse. We have to say, how do we change our practice? So what we're doing is we're working to give our teachers some professional learning. And like we talked about with Julie here, our RGI phonics. We have a pacing guide for that we put together for the elementary. We started earlier with our phonics instruction this year, and then making sure our teachers are getting fidelity checks, feedback from our instructional coach as well as myself going in and giving them feedback to make sure that they're keeping on pace with that, making sure those lessons are solid. And then like we talked about earlier, making sure that some of those Amy Young practices are there. One of the things that we've done with our grouping for class lists is we've grouped and clustered some of our students so that our EL teacher can push in to some of those classrooms, and we can take some of those practices and bring those into classroom teachers so that they can do and work on some of that academic language in some of those practices as well. And then making sure that we're practicing and providing feedback and modeling for teacher teams. So then when that team came in this summer, we said, okay, what are we going to do? And we saw that our K2 data was, we're seeing some improvements, but we need to make sure that we're hitting mastery with those foundational skills at K2. So what we did is we blocked 60 minutes of our reading win time in K2, where we have all of the support that we can have during that time. So it's not overlapped with a different grade level. So kindergarten has a 60 minutes, it's not overlapped with another grade level, and so on through the other grades. That meant that we could pull in our intervention, our EL teachers, our educational assistants, our success coach, classroom teachers, everybody all hands on deck during that 60-minute block, look at the data grade level wise and say, what do they need and what can we provide in groups so that we can get the kids touched as much as we can during that 60-minute block. So there's kids, they might not have tons of independent time, but they're getting what they need based on their data. For 3rd through 5th grade, it worked out to be about a 35-minute block where we do that same piece, but really hitting our K2 to see if we can close those gaps and reach mastery at K2 so that when they get to those 3 through 5 grades, we see a strong foundation. And then, of course, we have every week our teams are allocated for PLCs, as you know, and then once per week our grade level teams meet during their 50 minutes of common prep. And during that time, I've set aside every week I will be meeting with those teacher teams as well, looking at their planning, what are they doing for instructional focus, what needs do they have. And then we've planned into that cycle, too, that every 6 weeks we're looking at data, our progress monitor data, to determine if what they're doing with all of those pushed-in groups, with all those people there, is it working? Is it making a difference? If it is, great, let's continue with what we're doing. If it's not, how do we adjust that instruction? So we don't get to the end of the year or halfway through the year, you look at your benchmark data and go, oh, well, that didn't work. We need to do that more regularly. So we have those dates built in. Everybody has them on their calendar, and I'm pushing into all those teams. And then our instructional coach will continue that personalized professional development as she has, except she is taking on teams that she's going to be working with for extended periods and working with their instruction and their planning and modeling lessons. And we have her starting with our 5th grade group. We saw that 5th grade data was a struggle, and so she's pushing in with that 5th grade team and really working with them during their common planning, during some of their teaching times, modeling and co-teaching with them, trying to improve that data. And then we've also looked at our social emotional needs. Those have changed across the board at Sibley as well. So instead of waiting until things are coming up, we've responded to that as well. And we started some check and connect with some students, a large portion of that with our 5th grade students last winter. And we saw great gains with behaviors and things, social emotional needs last year. So we've started being proactive with that this fall and have started our counselor working on some of those check and connect, as well as our social workers can work with some of our general ed students to do some of those pieces in addition to those special ed students that they work with. We've adjusted our second step a little bit, teachers teaching those pieces so that our social workers, counselors can provide additional support with them. So it's an extension of that basic lesson, that Tier 1 lesson that they're getting, and then continuing with our responsive classroom, and then really trying to increase the culture of academic discourse. Decreasing teacher talk, increasing student talk, and really working hard at that. And that, I know that Laura talked about that with the Talk, Read, Talk, Write as well. So of course we have challenges. You know, we have 30 minutes of professional learning that we can get in. How do we give that to our teachers? We have to balance those needs with getting instructional needs. But going into this with a mindset, you know what? We don't let what we cannot do interfere with what we can't do. There's times that teachers will come or will come and say, well, they come to us. Nope, we're not using that. That mindset is we're not letting those things, those challenges get in our way. We need to still go with whatever we can, give it 100% no matter what we're doing. And then when it's all said and done, our goal is showing student growth, and that's our priority, and adjusting to meet the needs of our students. So we're really setting some things up, changing some practices in what we're doing to see if we can make those changes happen. Okay? Questions?
I do have a question.
Sure.
We moved some students from Sibley to Lakeview.
Yes.
What do you see from that?
We have an art room back, which has been great. So we have, they're not pushing into classroom or our lunchroom. We are seeing our class sizes are a bit smaller. Not that that is an end-all be-all. Class sizes do help, but giving us a chance when we're grouping and doing small group instruction, when I talked about that 60-minute block or those 35-minute blocks, we're able to group kids and have smaller groups for those times to give them more individualized instruction. So that's made a difference. So, yeah.
Okay, any questions?
That hopefully will make a difference. I assume this data was collected when you were rather crowded.
Yep, that was last year's data, yep.
Right.
Yes. So yes, we have lots of work to do, but we're plugging away, working hard. not hopefully, Neil, we're going with we will. We will make a difference.
Thank you.
Just want to comment on the passion of both Diane and Tanya, and you can feel it from talking, and I think that it's their leadership and their buildings are really making a difference with our students and our teachers. So we may not see it reflected as of yet, but I appreciate all the hard work that both of them are doing.
I think we all would agree with that. Thank you. Next, we have approval for adoption of the proposed 2019 pay 2020 certified levy at maximum. Jennifer.
Thank you. So I know many of you have sat through these in the past, so I did send out ahead of time a rather detailed summary of the levy, so hopefully you had an opportunity. Oh, the microphone. To look through that. So this is going to be a higher level overview. Just as a reminder too, 2019 pay 2020, what does that mean? So it means it is certified in the calendar year 2019. Taxpayers pay it in calendar year 2020, and the school district actually recognizes it as revenue in our fiscal year 21, so in the 2021 school year. Districts are required to approve a proposed levy by the end of this month, and then I will come back in December with the final levy and looking for approval of that. So in the general fund, we are looking at about a $235,000 increase, and this is a combination of several items, as was noted in that summary. Some prior years adjustments. For every levy, the MDE goes back and looks at actual numbers, primarily our ADMs, sometimes some assumptions that we've made, and makes adjustments. You may have noticed in the upper portion of that summary that the local optional revenue, or LOR, and the referendum looked quite a bit different for next year's levy. Last legislative session, they made the decision to roll the $300 board-approved levy up into the local optional revenue. So local optional revenue went from $424 per pupil unit to $724 per pupil unit, and then that $300 actually came off of our referendum. So you'll see those numbers somewhat flip-flopped. We are getting some additional revenue and equity, and that's how Albert Lea compares to other districts in our referendum revenue. A little bit more in Q-Comp. You'll see a change in the achievement and integration levy. We have an opportunity next year to access some additional funds. One interesting thing with achievement and integration, about 30% comes from levy. The other 70% comes in as state aid. And I so love listening to our principals talk about things that they're so passionate about, but the needs that they have in their schools. And achievement and integration funds can really be used to target some of the challenges that we see. Also, I was part of the group that met with the families from Sudan yesterday and talking about some of the needs that they have requested from the district. Again, those are things that we can fund with achievement and integration funds. And then long-term facilities maintenance, that is a factor of not only our pupils, which we are anticipating to go up very slightly in the next year, but it's also a factor of our building age, and our buildings, age an additional year every year, so that's why you see those funds go up. Another thing I do want to mention, I know as a finance person, I get really wrapped up in the numbers of a school district. That's my job. But I will always try in my presentations to have pictures of the great things going on in our schools, because really we need to remind ourselves that the numbers only support what we do for our students. And so as we always are striving to make do with what we have in revenue, and it never is really enough, but we always try our best, and we see some great things happening. And this was a picture I believe, at Thorncrest. They were, one of our schools was there the other day. Okay, next, community ed, very slight increase in the community education portion of the levy. Most of our community ed levy is a factor of the 2010 census. And so until 2020, when we have a new census, our community education portion, not early childhood, family ed, will stay virtually static. The other thing that impacts our community education levy is the 0 to 4 child count, and that is something that we estimate, and that is what funds our early childhood family ed. But there's just a very slight increase in community ed. Then in debt service, a little over $100,000 increase. The levy is always based on the principal plus the interest payments, in this case for FY21, plus 5%. Because they always add that 5%, and we rarely need it for any purpose, our fund balance would keep going up and up. And so every year there is a reduction for excess fund balance, and that can vary quite a bit from year to year the way they calculate it. So sometimes that reduction, because it does vary, can have an impact on our levy. And then again, prior year's adjustments. And then the final portion of our levy, not all school districts have OPEB debt service, but Albert Lee does. And we are expecting a small decrease in that. And again, that is based on our payments for principal and interest for that bond. So our total levy at this point is $8,984,345. That is an increase of $328,800. The other thing that we have to keep in mind, however, is when we're levying, it is for a very specific dollar amount. And then that gets spread out over our tax capacity. In our district, the tax capacity, there's two measurements for schools. There's the referendum market value and the net tax capacity. And both of those have increased over the prior year. And this is information that we got from the county. So what this means for us is even though our taxes, our levy is going up because our capacity is going up at a greater rate, for our taxpayers, it can potentially mean that the school district portion is actually going to decrease. And that's what this shows. So the average home value, according to just a couple weeks ago, is actually $116,000 for a residential homestead. But I know Albert Lee has used the $100,000 number quite a bit. So with the assumption that that $100,000 home value does not change from last year to this year, the tax impact of this levy would actually be a $4 decrease. And you can see, again, the whole way down on the estimated impact, it would be a decrease, again with the assumption that any given property's value has not decreased. And then in conclusion, just looking at that $100,000 valued home, what has happened since 2014 with their school property taxes. And you can see that it's gone up and down slightly from year to year, but actually from 2018 to 2019, based on the information that we have now, it would decrease by $4. So my recommendation to the board is that we approve this proposed levy at the maximum. And really what that means is if in the next 7 days, because the Department of Ed has until September 20th to finalize any calculations that they've made, but we've seen no change in the last few days and hours. But by approving it at the maximum, if there is any slight adjustment, we would include that in the final levy. And because we have no vote coming up this year, we can anticipate that our final levy would be this amount.
Any questions?
I know this has been explained to us before, but can you kind of explain that when we use this levy, then like that we get like some state aid, that if we didn't?
Yes.
Kind of explain how that works a little
Yeah,
bit?
so in that summary that I sent to you, a piece of information that I don't know if it's been included in the past, in the far right column, I did include the aid that goes along with these various levies. And I will just use the achievement and integration as an example. So our levy, our proposed levy is $148,000. The state aid would add another $345,000 to that. So this is a case where we're levying 30% of the total amount. If we would under levy that, we would also lose some state aid. So any of these that we have aid in addition to the levy, if you would under levy, we also lose the state aid by a proportionate amount. And that's why it's, you don't simply decrease your revenue on the levy side, you decrease it on the state aid side also.
Okay, no more questions, I'd entertain a motion. So moved. Is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of certifying the levy at the maximum signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Very good report, thank you. Next, we have the Minnesota State High School League Foundation. Paul?
All right, we still on here? Okay. So there's two parts to the High School League Foundation grant application. The first part's online, and I've submitted that portion. It required providing some demographic information and free and reduced lunch information to the State High School League. And then the second part is a board resolution, which you have here tonight. And so just a couple pieces for this grant application. I think this fits the goals of our district. Its purpose is to assist in funding and provide competitive, equitable, and uniform participation in athletics and fine arts, aid in the funding of programs at schools which address sportsmanship and chemical health, assist in the funding of educational programs for coaches, aid with the funding of registered MSHSL contest officials and judges, aid in the funding of state tournaments and programs, and then promote ethical behavior, fairness, embracing diversity, which best serves students in school communities. So a good purpose behind this foundation grant. There's actually two within the State High School League. There's a grant that's available in the fall and then one later in the year. And this one opened up September 12th and thought we should submit. So that's the board resolution here.
Okay, any questions?
Have we ever applied for this before?
It went away for a while, and we have repeatedly over time, but I don't think the last couple of years, I don't think they were funding it for a while.
What is it used for if we receive a grant?
Well, one part of it is to help reduce fees and get more students out for activities.
For lowering activity fees, basically.
Any other questions? I'd entertain a motion then. So moved. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? It's always good when you can reduce fees for students and get more people involved, definitely. So, all those in favor of the resolution to apply for this and support it for the Minnesota State High School League, signify by saying aye. 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 Pose same sign. Motion carries. And then we have the middle school basketball program.
So I was asked to come and talk about the plan for bringing middle school basketball back to Albert Lea. First, a couple little snippets here. Our current middle school programs that we offer, football and volleyball. Our football program, we have 52 students participating this year. In volleyball, we have 75. To paint a little bit more clear picture, football this year, we dropped the 6th grade portion as the community group that set up a youth football organization is now offering a 6th grade component there. Volleyball is 6 through 8. So the benefits of middle school programs, I think most of us know that they're beneficial. In our case, I think we target those socioeconomic benefits. In our schools, we do have the Tiger Foundation. The daily after-school practice is a major component of this. It really supports participation numbers and retention of student athletes. And then we have all our school supports in place when we have our school-funded middle school programs. So educational-based activities support your classroom performance. And there's a lot of data that supports students that stay engaged in activities through their high school experience tend to graduate at higher rates. And so basically there's a lot of support here. Another thing in our activities that we really want to focus on is getting larger numbers into our high school programs, because once students reach 9 through 12, you see a lot of attrition. Numbers do drop off just statistically. And so the more kids that you can get through your junior high levels into your high school programs, the better off your numbers will be by the time they're juniors and seniors, and it really support the success of your programs. So why basketball? One, when we do bring back an activity, we want to make sure that we're being gender neutral. Gender equity is important. If we have a girls program, or a boys program, we should have a girls program that's coming back as well. So basketball lends itself nicely to that. The new gymnasium opens up gym space. And then ease of scheduling. We can build a schedule for basketball to, I guess, our conference schedule and our regional opponents that should be rather simple. In other sports, holding off at this point, facilities with our new Hammer Field project not being completed yet, and then other components, scheduling, those sort of things, but hopefully soon we can start building back, and we'll use basketball kind of as that test run. Let's see how this goes with our basketball program, and then hopefully build in other programs soon after. Yeah, so we'll talk about that. So right now, at this point, when I met with our booster clubs and our coaching staffs and community members, just discussing what middle school basketball should look like at this point, I've got some outline bullet points here. Currently, the conversations we had revolved around 7th and 8th grade, but we're looking into a 6th grade in-house program. At this point, that's still an ongoing discussion. I think we can be confident in saying that the 7th and 8th grade schedule could be built out now and move from there. But the conversation about 6th grade is still ongoing. So what we're looking for the girls program, like our other middle school fees, $65. And the Tiger Funds can reduce those fees for free or reduce lunch students as well. We'll add 2 paid coaches, or coaches really as needed based on numbers. Daily practice for the girls side from the beginning of November through December, so basically up to our winter break. And daily after school practice, which we already talked about being a really important component of this. The middle school game schedule will not align to our high school schedule, so they might be playing different teams on different dates, but we'll mostly play conference schools. I'll show some charts here a little later of different regional opponents that would also be a great fit for Albert Lee. This year, we're targeting a 7th grade schedule for the girls team, as a lot of the 8th graders will be likely playing up on the 9th grade team. If the numbers support it, we would definitely have a 7th and an 8th grade team, and it would be feasible. Continuing January through February, this would be non-school basketball. And we'll talk about why in a moment here, of why we do the 2 months, November, December, and then January, February. I think it's modeled off of how we've done it in the past. And also when we look at other communities, this is typically how it's done with boys and girls, they alternate. So if we take a look at the boys slide here, same fee, same number of coaches. Daily practices then would be January and February. So the girls would be November, December, boys January and February. Same alignment with schedules, not aligned to the high school, but we'll play the conference schools if possible. This year, Looks like we're going to need 2 eighth grade teams based off of the projected numbers in talking with our booster clubs. And they'll have smaller numbers in 7th grade, so we'll try and provide an opportunity for them to play with the 8th grade group. If there's enough to support a 7th grade team, we definitely have a 7th grade roster as well. And then that means that in the early months, November, December, that the association or non-school league would support basketball, as they have in the past. So, and again, looking into the 6th grade program as well. That's still a discussion or talking point. So, why the girls in November, December, boys January and February? Continuity with the regional and conference schedules is we look here, and I'll get to it in a minute, most of the communities around us and in our conference are doing the same schedule with girls and boys alternating that way. This also allows associations and traveling leagues to continue, and we don't want to threaten participation in either school ball or in those traveling associations or community groups. So if we look, here's a chart. Got some highlighted rows there, and I can speak to those. So I surveyed our entire conference and some other schools in the area. These are the ones I've heard back from. Winona's the only oddball there. They have the boys first. So I asked that today. I was at a high school league fall meeting, and the AD in Winona noted that they have a little bit more flexibility, and the reason they alternate it. So next year they'll probably have the girls first and the boys later. Their traveling league has some benefits for going early or late. I can't remember which one he said, but that's the reason they do it. And so they schedule a lot of Wisconsin schools where it's not a problem finding opponents. Yep. So you see a lot of conference teams there. Glenville, Casson, Lyle Pacelli, Hayfield, those are schools that in conversation with our conference and regional teams, say I think Waseca and Byron are the non-conference that I've got confirmation from. They're saying these schools do this. I actually heard back from Glenville, Emmett, and Alden Conger today, and we're going to work on Wednesday of finding some dates for that those 2 schools as well. So the highlighted in yellow are teams that I've been told have the same scheduling practices, but I haven't got confirmation or games scheduled at this point. So we're looking at a minimum of probably about 12 games minimum that we'll have in those 2-month span. We want a good balance of practice and development to games, and we're going to try and avoid weekends as the traveling associations like to have their tournaments on the weekends and still have the ability to attend those. Yeah, open to whoever's got a similar schedule at this point. So, yep. I've reached out to a larger group. These are what I've heard back from of who does have a similar model. So at this point, I just haven't heard back. And yeah, we're going to try and get something that's, I guess financially it makes a lot more sense to play regional schools. However, I do encourage that we try and follow our conference competition as much as possible. I think it's going to be healthy for our junior high programs.
I mean, as far as financially speaking, they're a lot closer. Probably half the schools you have up there. That's why I asked that question.
Yep, I agree. Also, looking at this little chart, and you've seen this one in a different presentation in the past, but I edited it to show specific to basketball how we're looking at doing a couple levels of 8th grade boys basketball, and you see a number of schools have 2 levels of basketball. And so when we look to model our junior high, it's not going to be difficult to field two programs. In fact, most of the schools that I've been talking with have 2 levels of 7th and 8th grade. So hopefully we can get to that point where we have 2 as well in each grade level. So, and that's all
one of the things I was just going to bring up is with the boys going later this year, just so you don't run into an issue if school ball and traveling are going at the same time, there's a tendency by some to say, I don't need school ball. And somehow just the communication back and forth, so that is really important for all of those youth that are playing to participate, both school and then traveling is almost a secondary.
Right. And on the front end of our conversations with our booster clubs and our youth associations, the goal was to have a shortened season both on the front end and as communicating, one, with Dr. Funk about what we've done in the past, and 2, with other schools. We found that the majority of schools are doing the same model. It's going to be highly encouraged, from my understanding from our booster clubs, that they participate in school ball first in order to participate in their traveling associations. I don't know how that's going to be delivered, but that was part of our conversation, and I think that'll be a healthy, that'll help us in bringing this back.
We used to have that, and just to make sure that even though school ball will be after that, the traveling is encouraged to be at that.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
What kind of expectations and accountability will our head coaches be held to in working with our middle school programs?
They'll be hired just like any other coach in our program.
I mean, our head boys basketball coach at high school, head girls basketball coach at high school, what were their expectations about participating in these programs instead of just saying, it's good they're going?
So we recently offered the head boys basketball position to Lant Benavidez, and one of the selling points for Lant is that he wants to be highly involved with our youth and junior high programs, and that's an expectation that we help build the future of our program in Albert Lea. So.
And that will, I don't mean to throw more at you, but somewhat monitored, because we've had coaches in the past that have been all over this youth stuff, and then we never see them once at a youth practice, a youth game, youth tryout session, anything else. That's why I'm asking. I know if that's something we throw into it should be something you don't need to mention when you're hiring coaches. And I'm not saying that we're missing out. I'm just saying that too many times I've seen, I think they're going over there. I don't know for sure what nights they practice, or what kind of plays, what kind of offense. Just to coordinate efforts again to keep more kids active from grades 7 through 12, 6 through 12, wherever we go. Just wanted to see, and you think going forward, because this is new again.
Dave, I think you've heard Paul say boosters a dozen times tonight. Okay, he is embedded with the boosters in what is occurring within all of our sports, and he's listening to what the boosters have to say, and we're taking their input. And I can assure you, his head coaches will be part of the discussion with these boosters as far as what's moving forward here. So, from conversations I've had with Paul, the head coach is responsible developmentally for the program, youth through the high school, and that's the expectation.
And I know that's going on, but I don't think we want our boosters to run our school programs, and so it's good that we're combining, or doing more with the two together. I just don't want to see the disconnect continue to go like this, that we can get them together, and I'm sure Paul's working on that.
One last note on this with boys basketball. We recently hired Lant, and he's already engaged in getting not only himself but his high school players to help out and recruit and get student involvement at the elementary and junior high levels. So.
Okay, good. Thanks for the update. And I think back when we did our referendum, one of the main things that was a point was they wanted the junior high basketball to come back. And now with our junior high everything, but it's nice to see that the addition of the gym at Halverson is going to allow us that opportunity, and so I think the public will be happy with that. So. Thanks, Paul. We've reached the end of our agendas. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Motion's made to adjourn the meeting.